Okay, we have a case that occurred here in Spokane in 1986 that was a homicide of Miss Ruby Doss. That case was considered a cold case as leads had expired and nothing came to our attention that would let us continue that. It's something that we always look into and investigate, but until something comes up, we don't put a lot of time into it until it comes to our attention. This case was interesting in that the detectives that worked it have since retired, and it was passed on to a current major crimes detective. We were notified earlier this year that a DNA sample, which was collected at the scene of the homicide back in 1986, actually hit a sample that was collected on another case. Once that occurred, they then notified Detective Hollenbeck and the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, who were investigating the case, which notified us that there was actually a match with the DNA that we collected with the DNA that was collected during their subsequent investigation that they're involved with. Once that occurred, we touched base with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, who were investigating an alleged sexual assault with Mr. Aguirre down in Pasco. During that time, his DNA was collected, and that is what matched with the DNA collected at the scene of our investigation. Once that happened, we started doing some further investigation. We did execute a search warrant at his residence down in Pasco, collected evidence, and we'll continue to follow this investigation up and prepare it for a court case. So if there's questions, I can take them at this time.
So Ruby Doss was one of a couple women who were found murdered during that time period. Does this open up the question of could this Aguirre person be connected to other cold cases that still haven't been solved?
Yes, it does, in that we're always looking at the potential of them being connected and ones that we don't have information on, maybe from out of town as well. So to answer that, yes, it does. We are focused right now on the Ruby Doss case and bringing this one to resolution for the family, but we will continue to look into some of the other homicides and see if we can't connect the two of them.
Is there indication that he lived in Spokane at a time, or do you know what his connection is with Spokane?
We do have information that at the time that this one occurred, he did live up in the Spokane area.
Do you know if that was before becoming a Pasco police officer?
It was. At the time that this occurred, he was not a Pasco police officer.
Was he reservist with Fairchild Air Force Base?
I can't go into details on his military experience because I don't have all the documents yet. We're actually pulling that information, so once I have that, we'll be able to put that out, but I can't say for certainty at this point.
Can you give us any information on the sexual assault he was being investigated for?
All I can say is that's a Franklin County case, and so their prosecutor's office are the ones that are working on that case, so I can't go into detail on it, other than during that investigation, his DNA buccal swabs were collected, and that's what hit into CODIS, the combined DNA indexing system, which led us to this information that we have now.
Were there any other DNA samples from the women during that time that were killed that will be submitted for possible matches?
We are submitting and resubmitting evidence collected both during that time for Ms. Doss's case and other ones to see if there is a connection. So, yes.
Do you know how many other women you think could possibly be? I know because there were like 5 at that time, and I know 2 have already been, other people have been charged.
Have been arrested and charged. Correct. There are several, I can say, not with certainty, I can't give you the exact number, but there are several that are similar MO that we're going to look into. It potentially may lead to further investigation of that, on those cases.
And what's the span of years of the cases that you'll look at?
We will look at any case that happened both in this area or in this general area that are similar to this investigation. So once this goes out, we're hoping that this press release will both bring up information from potential victims or women that he may have been assaulted by, or other agencies who are sitting on similar type cold cases that may see this and say, we have a cold case homicide that we have not been able to prosecute, and this is very similar to ours. Could this potentially be there? At which point we will then work with them to see what we can find out.
From the 80s up until now?
Correct.
And are you asking women to come forward if they have been assaulted by?
We are asking for anybody that's got information or have had a negative contact or any contact with this gentleman who is similar to the allegations in the Ruby Doss case, or situations that may lead them to believe he may have done this. And we'd like that information to put into our case.
And does Ruby Doss, I know she was from, I think, Detroit. Does she have any family in the Spokane area?
She does have family. I do not believe in the Spokane area. We are in contact with that family. They are working with us and are very happy that we are continuing to work this case. And we will be in contact with them in the future to get more information.
Were they pretty shocked to hear that there's maybe been somebody tied to her murder? Because just to have such a long period of time go by and not have anything, I don't know if you can share a little bit of maybe their reaction.
They were very excited and very happy that we continue to follow up on this case and that we don't just forget about these victims. Because again, these are victims who have family members who have done good things, and they want closure desperately. And so she was the daughter that we talked to was very ecstatic that we are continuing to work this and may potentially bring a suspect to a court.
And I know you said the detectives who initially worked on it have since retired, but what's it like for you guys to be able to, finally get somewhere on a case like this?
These cases are exciting for us in that we now, with CODIS coming about, this case, so DNA was collected at the scene of the Ruby Doss homicide. It was not entered into CODIS until 2002 with no profile on match there. So that stuff didn't happen back in '86. They didn't enter those into CODIS and into these systems where they could actually find the match. So once that comes about, now that leaves us with more information and more evidence to follow up on. So it's a continued chess match that we're looking at. And the detective that worked this case is still in the area, and so we are in contact with him, and he is assisted on it, and so he'll be working with us to give us any information that we may not read in the reports or that we may not have available to us.
Can you tell us what was submitted for DNA?
All different kinds of evidence collected at the scene. There was clothing, there was photographs. I'm not going to go into detail with some of the DNA that was collected, but I can say an array of evidence collected at the scene.
So, Lieutenant, can you reiterate some of the information that was released to the news media about the details of the murder when it happened back in 1986? Do you know what detectives told the media about she was clothed, she was not clothed, sexual assault, no sexual assault?
I do know some of the information that was released, but I'm not going to go into detail on that just today. I'm going to let a detective who wants to do some follow-up, and again, we're wanting some information, people to contact us who may have some specific information about that case and about that day. And so we're hoping that that information will come up to us now, and then we can follow up with it. I don't want to put that information out yet just because it's an intricate part of what we have, some of the questions we have for these people.
Could you tell us about how or when she was found?
She was found late night of January 30th, 1986. She was found down by the Playfair track area at the time. I think it was Ferry and Fisk Street, so intersection there.
Who found her?
I don't recall who.
Transient.
Oh, a transient. That's a transient came upon her, found her, called police, and then patrol responded out, and then of course major crimes.
Can you tell us of all those women that were killed in that same time period, what kind of DNA collection was done, and was there an analysis done at that time by a local company?
What they did is like they do today, they'll collect swabs of the hands, of clothing, and then once that information is uploaded and broken down to get the DNA out of it, is then uploaded into CODIS. At that time, they didn't have that. And so luckily, they had collected swabs of the hands, swabs of the face, neck, things like that for touch DNA, which they didn't have then, we do now, which could help break the case. And so a lot of the stuff that they did back then is still the same evidence collection that we do today. And so collecting of the fingernails, swabs of the face, the hands, those type of things.
Was there an analysis done back then?
It was there was a partial DNA collected, but not enough to get a full analysis back in that time. Since the 2002 entered into CODIS, they were able to get a full male DNA, which is what hit with Mr. Aguirre from his buccal swabs that were taken by Franklin County.
And that contemporary CODIS hit happened about when?
Earlier this year, I don't have the exact date. Within the last month, we were notified that they did have a match with DNA that was submitted from Mr. Aguirre or Mr. Aguirre with the evidence collected with the Ruby Doss case. So within the last month, we were notified of that information.
Is it Aguirre? I've had this battle
is.
all day. I didn't
It
know how
is.
to pronounce his
It
last
is,
name.
yes,
Okay.
Aguirre.
Aguirre. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Y'all had a chance to visit with Mr. Aguirre about this yet?
We have. We had a brief conversation with him while we executed a search warrant down at his residence.
Was there a lot of evidence collected from his residence?
There was evidence collected that we're going to now look into. I wouldn't say a lot of evidence, but things that we want to now look into to see if there could be any ties or any information that would put him in this specific area at that time, or things about the case that may come to our attention, or other cases that we maybe need to be concerned with.
Can you just reiterate what we're asking from the public?
Yeah, we're asking that if anybody has information, specific information with this case, or has had interaction with Mr. Gary that is similar in nature to this, that they get a hold of us and fill us in on this information so we can look at prior acts that are similar to the ones that we're investigating. And so if anybody's got information from past experiences with him, we ask that you get a hold of our detectives who can then follow up with you and get some of that information from you.
Any other questions? We're good. Great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.